Thank you very much. We now live in a culture that celebrates youth more so than any other time period. In the medieval era, parents would not love their children. They were treated more like house pets. After all, it was dangerous to get attached to someone that was likely to die in their first 12 years of life from disease. But now we are obsessed with youth and its ephemeral beauty. However, what should be most celebrated about youth is the fact that your minds are still open to new ideas. Your brains have not yet been hardwired by the conditioning process of the 21st century. Here you are, willing to listen and think deeply about ideas from your time and place. I have been teaching high school in Mississuga for the last 20 years, and I've watched it change dramatically into a city whose character is increasingly global. We are the planet here in Mississuga, and I think that is something worth celebrating because the future of this country is to become a fully integrated, multiracial society. I believe that to lead a life of purpose, one must think of rebellion as a means of earning one's death. Our time spent on planet Earth is a brief thing. Even though young people sometimes think, talk, text, and act like they are immortal, the truth is one lifetime doesn't last so long. To make sure the life that you lead is valuable, I believe that the rebel must think of leading a life that is one that is preparing yourself to work towards to earning one's death. Because the rebel is not lazy, she is relentless. Sometimes the universe will knock loudly on your door and call you to action. Some hear the knock, and others hear the call, others do not even listen. Martin Luther King heard the call and said, "Time has seized me." He was that unique combination of unwavering belief, extreme patience, and immense determination. His leadership was an unwavering arrow that shot through the hearts of a nation when America was on fire. And he created some of the greatest shifts towards justice and equality. That is a rare moment indeed, but the universe whispers softer than this to many of us. You must teach yourself to be patient and learn how to listen, especially to listen to others and value their stories. These are the three prerequisites for the rebel. Know yourself, know your time and place, and know your history. As a rebel, you will learn to speak the truth and only the truth. You will be hated for this, and you will not care. Because you will have led a life that celebrates peace, humanity, and freedom. You will have earned your death and hopefully die surrounded by the faces that love you and that you have loved. For the rebel values life and longs to die peacefully without suffering and dies without regrets because they die speaking the truth. Let me share with you a story about how I learned to become a rebel and understood that I must earn my death. I need to take you to a campfire late at night. We are up north near Wawa, Ontario, the land of the big goose. We are beside an ancient river, the Mississuga River. There's a group of family members sitting around the fire after a day-long canoe trip under a brilliant canopy of stars that is as awesome as the raucous waves of Lake Superior that are churning beside us. This is the night before my father's death. We are talking around the dying embers, and I am feeling incredibly close to a man whose love was mixed with passion and anger. But tonight I sense the stars shifting up above, like my orbital father down below. When will you be this close to me again, I wondered. Has all your anger and confusion finally burned itself out? The next day, we are swimming what appeared to be a deceptively easy distance across the mouth of the Mississuga. Unknown to us, the hydro dam had been opened upriver, and as the flood of water flowed, the current carried my father out into the mouth of Lake Superior and pulled him under the waters. I never saw him again. But before he disappeared out of sight, he called out to me, "Robert, go back. It's not safe." There are these moments with my father. At the base of our first mountain climb, he gives me 2 basic instructions, and we begin our ascent. Without ropes, we are free climbing vertically, thousands of meters in the air. We are moving across smooth stone and overhanging boulders, my father always climbing below me, as if he would be able to catch me if I fell. In another moment, I am much younger, 3 or 4, being held on the doorstep by my mother. He is yelling at us both. He is kicking us out of the house. There was a reunion later, and I remember that night too. He came and read me a story. I hadn't seen him in so long. Fathers loom large in our lives, mythic male symbol, our first guide. I don't have a lot of memories of hugging my dad, but I do remember working hard to earn his praise, respect, and in the roundabout ways that he showed it, his love. My father grew up out of the noise of World War II. His own father was sent to the Russian front to fight for a different kind of fatherland, one based on hate, deprecation, and misery. My grandfather was captured and sent to Siberia. He was kept there for 3 years after the war ended. My own father grew up without a dad for the first 4 years of his life. It must have been a terrible, sad, and angry time for him. I have a lot of compassion and forgiveness for my father. The year of his death was the year we had just moved to Guelph and found ourselves by chance living beside one of the most unique men I have ever met in my life and had the privilege to know and call friend. He was one of Canada's foremost environmentalists. His yard was an oasis in an urban center. Henry Cock was as tall as a tree with lanky limbs, gnarled hands, and a wit that sparkled through his beard that reminded me a lot of my father. The winter after my father died, Henry lost his sister in a car accident, and we cried together through the long, cold months. We collaborated together around outdoor fires and tried to find a pathway through the forest of grief. He became a surrogate father, a good friend, a brother, certainly more than a neighbor. He walked like a giant on this earth, always full of wisdom and a heart of unending compassion that showed me how to hate less and love more. What Henry taught me was that while we have no choice over what happens to us or how we die, we do have a choice in how we want to be. As I held Henry one day in the hospital, as he was dying from brain cancer, 5 years after I met him, I held him and I said, "Henry, knowing you has been a roller coaster ride." And he looked at me and smiled, and in a broken voice, he actually apologized. "I didn't mean for it to be this way." I learned from my father that you can add years to your life, or you can add life to your years. Henry taught me how to find purpose in my life by giving youth the tools to speak up for themselves and to share their stories. He taught me how to be an activist, and I learned how to conquer death by leading a life of purpose and attempting compassion as often as possible. Being a father, like being a partner, is an identity choice, a way of being, just like being a friend. And it is a place that you can eliminate all violence, even yelling, because what a child needs most from their dad, like all people, is love and time. You are alive in an age of magic and boredom, when never before have youth held so much power in their hands. And we should do something excellent with all this power, something more than just clicking likes and retweeting and reblogging the things that make us laugh and cry. So I would like to explore the hows, whats, and whys of rebellion for youth here in the West who live off of the fat of the planet and fetishize their toys. There is this thing called the internet we all use to flood the airwaves with invisible signals. Swimming all around us are the ghosts of our voices, bouncing off of satellites, moving through our bodies. It is an age of magic machines, and these machines are changing us. In a recent survey, it was found that teens spend as much time talking as they do texting. In fact, 47% can text without looking. How many of you are texters? Let's see. How many? How many of you can text without looking? You are adapting to the new tools. Just as the written language and the printing press altered us, these new tools transform us. You are the vanguard of that revolution. How you choose to use these digital devices, what tools you make, and what you create, this will determine our future direction. There was a band that you might be familiar with called the Beatles. They arrived in North America to screaming fans. Unlike Facebook, they did not gather 100 million users in a single year, but they were the dominant pop culture event of their time period. This image of a Facebook friend network and their user interactions demonstrates just how prolific our online communications are. On Facebook, everyone can be a rock star, at least in their own minds. Bob Dylan, a famous folk music hero, came backstage to one of the Beatles concerts and said, "Listen, You have fans growing all across this planet. Don't you have anything more important to say to them than I want to hold your hand? The internet is the Beatles of your era. You no longer have dominant pop groups. Your entertainment changes frequently. But your trending platform, the web, that medium is the message, and it is your message. It makes you laugh, scream, and cry the way the Beatles did in the 60s. Do you have anything more important to say on it than what you like or don't like? Who will dare to move away from the mundanity and boredom of, OMG, I'm in the bathroom, again? At the same time, you are destined to challenge the values of your age, thumbing your nose at ideas like privacy, sexting images of yourself freely, and posting uncensored opinions about everyone you know. It is said that you engage more in conversational sipping than in deep conversation. I believe that the rebel is much more conscious than this. She will speak with purpose. She will drink deeply from the digital well. She will make her own tools, and she will be wary of who collects information about her. To know history is to know truth. Canada is an incredibly diverse nation in ethnicity, language, belief, custom, ability, and sexuality. Still, our social fabric has a relative calm to it, despite all of our differences. And if you don't think that's something special, just turn on the news, and you'll see every day nations who are killing their neighbors, who are torturing their own citizens, and occupying violently the lands of others on a routine basis. In fact, there has never been a time for you in all your life that you have not watched war on the TV screen. It must be getting boring for you, all these explosions that are blending in with the high-resolution explosions of video games and the consumer bombardment of beer ads, jeans, and things that will make your body smell better. So not only do we have advertising self-induced hate to deal with, but here in Canada, we've had some pretty violent, threatening racist events over the last 5 years, from cross burnings to firebombs. And so I think that the first order of business is for the rebel to acknowledge that in any time period, hatred is unacceptable, and that everyone has the right to breathe air and live freely on this planet. Now, the Canadian nation is something that was imposed over top of an Aboriginal identity. The colonization of First Peoples and the Inuit, the current Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Canada on residential schools are significant features of our history. When I was at school, I learned probably much the same as you did, that Aboriginal peoples lived in teepees and longhouses, they made maple syrup in the winter, and then they just went away. Blackhawk says, how smooth must be the language of the whites when they can make right look like wrong and wrong like right. We must work through that first deception of Canadian history. As we currently reflect on the rebel, William Lyon Mackenzie, and what he did after his failed rebellion in Mississuga, I wonder, do we even know who the Mississaugans were? They were literally the people who lived at the mouth of the Big River, a subtribe of the Anishinaabe-speaking peoples of southern Ontario. What was done to Aboriginal people and the slavery era are the two most important human devastations that define history on this continent. And we are still dealing with the fallout from those time periods. Trayvon Martin is one example of this, and so is the experience of Inuit youth sniffing gasoline and committing suicide at a higher rate than anyone else in this country. Know where you come from. Value and respect your family and culture. Find out about yourself. Examine your point of origin. Know that others are displaced on this planet, have had their history stolen from them, who are here as refugees. Be compassionate to others and respect their story. Maybe we are too comfortable here in the West, and that is why we have nothing significant to rebel against, even though the greatest threats to our own personal security and the well-being of our family and community is directly tied to the social ills that are in front of us every single day. Poverty, sexism, ableism, homophobia, and racism. What we also know to be true is that Mother Earth is very sick, and we are the poison. In fact, here in southern Ontario, we are living in the most environmentally devastated ecosystem in the world. This golden horseshoe of commerce used to be the northern end of the Carolinian forest. a absolute significant marginal wetland area, a migratory hotbed for a diversity of species. But we plowed all that over for farmland, and the farmland has been turned into suburbs. And now we talk complacently about our little bits of forest called green belts, these tiny strips of what used to be the great lungs of the planet. And what were we doing while the forest was being butchered and while children worked in blue jean slave factories on our behalf? Were we sleeping while the others suffered? Were we too busy dancing at the club? Were we being distracted by celebrity gossip? What should we be talking about if it is not about real life and real blood? Let us speak about things that matter to us all, that is for the well-being of us all, and let us do it with a passion and desire. Let us hurl breathless poems against all this death and send these words careening out into the beautiful darkness. Let the best of us be remembered, and not the lowest common denominator of being amused to death by what's on the screen. Do not be distracted by the voice of consumerism or tied up by the voices of the social. Speak up about values that matter, such as ecology, diversity, respect, and compassion for others. You can do this in person and online. You not only turn on the channel, but you get to make the channel every day by what you post about. If you do not assert your voice and your values, you will be given only limited options with which to entertain and pacify you. Why not reject the corporation outright? Stop advertising for the corporate brand on your shoes, your jackets, purses, t-shirts, hats, and jeans. The choice is clear: consume or create. It is in our stories that we express our passion and desire. Telling someone about where we came from and our challenges is something that bonds us to other people. After all, you can't hate someone whose story you know. There must be among you someone who will make the claim to value each other's story and find a means to broadcast the injustices of your nation, your community, and Mother Earth without fear. Someone guided by conscience, who has been seized by time and whose mouth bleeds when she speaks. I challenge you to learn a language that is lethal and beautiful, to speak about love and compassion. I challenge you to seek out hatred and silence it with better voices. Be the rebel. Earn your death. In Camus' book, The Rebel, he contemplates a transformative moment in history when events will conspire to bring about an individual who will give up their adolescent rages, who will abandon the false conformities of the age. And at a time of crisis, when the world is set ablaze, this rebel will leap up with a voice into flight with a conviction that is inflexible and free. How long has it been since North America has heard such a great voice? Maybe, in a time of collaboration, there will be many unswerving arrows from multiple quivers. Thank you.